Hello book lovers and welcome back or welcome to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today I would like to take the time to talk about 10 books that feature strong female characters. The day that I'm filming this, it is the day after International Women's Day, which is inspiring this video. I have found 10 books that have strong women in it. Obviously, there are plenty more. But these are 10 books that I have on my shelf or recently read that I definitely think you should check out. I would love to see your recommendations for strong female characters down below as well. Because we are going through 10 books, I'm not going to talk too long on each of these books because I don't want this video to be like an hour long or anything crazy like that. And without further ado, we will go ahead and jump right in. First book I want to talk about is the one that I do not own, so I want to get that out of the way to make sure I don't forget about it, and that is Internment by Samira Ahmed. And this is a dystopian YA story in which we are following Layla. And Layla is a part of a Muslim family, and at the beginning of the story, America decides that it is essentially illegal to be Muslim, and they start relocating Muslims to internment camps. This is obviously a very difficult story to read. We are following Layla as she is in this internment camp, and she, as well as some other young people, decide that they are going to fight against the oppression and discrimination that their people are facing. Layla is an incredibly strong character. She is in a very traumatic experience, and this is something that is going to impact her for the rest of her life. And throughout the story, she is very aware of that, but despite that, she is constantly putting herself in the line of fire in hopes of helping her people as a whole. I think that the story really beautifully reflects the strength of a lot of women in our world today. Unfortunately, our country has seen a lot of decline in acceptance towards groups that are different than them, and these groups are having to stand up for themselves to make sure that their rights are not being taken. This book is obviously written post-election of Trump here in America, and it definitely reflects the hatred that was being amplified during that time in our country. Layla is incredibly brave, as are all of her friends, and throughout this entire story, we not only see their fear and bravery, but the hope that they have for their people, as well as their hope that those on the outside will fight for their freedom as well. So this is an excellent story that I highly suggest that you read, not just for our strong female character, but for the important messaging that it presents as well. Moving on, I would like to talk about the one nonfiction book that I have on this list, and that is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. This is a relatively well-known nonfiction story in which we are following Chanel with her experience with the court system as she tries to get justice for the sexual assault that was committed against her while she was at a college party. As you can tell, I tabbed the story to high heaven and back. It was such an impactful story. Chanel did a wonderful job writing about her experience and really allowing you to feel the emotions that she was going through. It was definitely an emotional roller coaster. She experienced this for years. This was a very drawn out and exhausting process, and I have so much respect for her for following through. Honestly, I don't know if I could have done it. I might have just, said forget about it. I want this to be over, but she pushed through and showed immense emotional strength throughout this story. Obviously, anyone who's been through sexual assault knows that it is a extremely traumatic and invasive experience. And I felt like she presented the story in a way where you were very aware of the trauma without it feeling overwhelming or like trauma porn. I think she really balanced her story out very well, and she does a really great job of showing a realistic picture of what it's like to try to get justice after something like this happens to you. This book definitely made me cry a few times. I will admit that the parts that made me cry the most was the parts where she spoke about the support that she got from friends, family, as well as other women in the community, including women who had experienced sexual assault themselves, and just becoming aware of what a big problem this is and how much other people are looking up to her for taking this stand. So Chanel Miller is obviously someone that most of us have an immense amount of respect for, and if you haven't read her story yet, then if you are able to, because obviously it can be very triggering, but if you feel you are able to, I highly suggest that you do so. Next, I want to talk about a standalone fantasy that is relatively well known for its strong female character, and that is The Sword of Kagon by M.L. Wang. And the strong female in this story is Masaki, and she is a warrior and a mother. In this story, we are following the Masuda family, and the main points of view that we follow are Masaki as well as her oldest son Mamoru. And at the beginning of the story, it becomes very clear that war is on the horizon and the family starts to prepare. Masaki is a character who, despite being a woman in this time period, which is more historical, was raised to be a fighter, and she actually went to school in another country to improve her fighting skills and was kind of part of a group of, I guess you could consider them vigilantes. However, one day she had to get married, and so she put her sword away and became a wife and a mother. However, with a war on the horizon and her children needing protection, as well as the other members of her village, she decides to pick up that sword again. Obviously, the story focuses on a lot of topics and not just Masaki. However, since we're talking about strong females, I really want to focus on her part of the story. I think that she really represents the capacity for women to not just fill single roles within society. It was very much kind of like, you can either be this or you can be that, but she was both an excellent, strong wife as well as a protective and nurturing mother, and on top of that, an incredibly skilled and brave warrior. She filled a lot of shoes throughout this story, and she did it with a lot of skill and honor. She is definitely the kind of person that went out and earned respect. She was not the kind of person that you could turn your back on, and I think that she was really the one who, at the end of this war, kind of took the reins and helped start the rebuilding process. If you really want to know the strength women have and the huge role that they can play in upholding a community, then this is definitely the book to read. A lot of times when it comes to war stories, we hear about the men on the battlefield, but this story, I think, also really went into the role that women played, whether they were able to pick up a sword themselves or not. They were all integral to the rebuilding and the survival of their people. So excellent story, lots of strong women present in here, and also incredibly heartbreaking. If you haven't read the standalone, then it is time to do so. Even though it's a chonker, trust me, it is worth it. Up next, we have a different type of strong woman, and that is A Lady of Rooksgrave Manor by Catherine Sun, Moon. This is the first book in the Tempting Monsters trilogy. And in this book, we are following Esther. And Esther had been a maid of sorts to a family that is facing financial difficulty. And so they are letting some of their workers go, including her. And she ends up getting employment at what is essentially a brothel. And these women do not service human men, but rather monsters. And throughout the story, she takes on and falls in love with 5 different monstrous men. This book is very smut forward, but I think one of the things that makes Esther such a strong female character is the fact that she is very secure in her sexuality and her sexual desire. She is not at all ashamed of the fact that she's a little bit of a slut. Like, she just likes to get it on day and night, and she is not ashamed of that whatsoever. So if you're looking for a book where women are not shamed for their kinks, for their desires, for the demands that they make of their men, then she is definitely the girl for you. On top of that, there is a villain in the background, but Esther's not gonna just stand by and let her men protect her, even though she's just a human and they're facing monsters. No, she is gonna protect them just as much. She is just as likely to run into a burning building to save them as they are to run in after her. So I feel like she was definitely on par with her male lovers, and despite the fact that they were strong and they were monsters and had special abilities, she still proved herself to be an equal when it came to protecting those that she loved. So a lot of respect for this woman. Had a great time with this book. If you're looking for just some smutty good times with just a smidge of a plot and some good found family as well, because that often comes with reverse harem in my opinion, then I would definitely go ahead and check out this one. Another romance that I want to talk about is going to be 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. And in this book, we are following Ava and Shane. And Ava is a single mother who is suffering from a chronic illness. I believe it is chronic migraines, and she is also a author. She is writing paranormal romances and is quite well known for that. But at this point in her life, she is hoping to move away from paranormal romance and hoping to write something a little bit more personal to her, possibly involving the experiences of her family. At the beginning of this book, Shane comes back into her life, and this time he is hoping to stay. As the title suggests, they spent 7 days together, but one day Shane disappears, and so Ava is a little bit reluctant to let him back into their life. Both of these have a rather difficult past, including substance abuse and toxic relationships with family. So these people have a lot of healing to do, and watching Ava heal herself throughout the story was really great, especially since she didn't depend wholly on Shane to do so. In fact, she at a point stepped back from the relationship because she was like, I need to focus on me and I need to focus on my daughter. And I think that was a really wise thing to do. I am someone who fully supports people healing themselves before they get into a serious relationship. I fully understand how relationships can help you heal, but I don't think that you should be depending fully on your partner to do so. So I really enjoyed her healing process and just her taking this opportunity to make a scary change in her life, because she had a steady source of income from her paranormal books and she did not know if she would be as successful moving to another genre, but she really wanted to do this for herself. So she was someone who, despite her chronic illness, despite being a single mother, was out there achieving her dreams, and along the way was winning the heart of a wonderful man. So had a great time with the story. I think Ava is such a great character. I really want to reread this book someday so that I can go ahead and experience her journey again. And if you haven't read it yet, then get on that. Up next, we have another YA story, and that is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I believe that anytime I talk about this book, I talk about how much I love the strong female characters in this story. We are following 3 different young women throughout this story, and each of them are facing their own trials. One of our characters, Miriam, is the daughter of a money lender, and he's not a very good money lender. In fact, they are losing a lot of money, and the people he lends to are very much taking advantage of him. One day, I believe her mother becomes sick, and she just decides to step in. She's like, you know what? No, I'm taking over. And she starts collecting all the money, which makes people not like her very much, but allows her to make her family a lot of money. And this causes people to start saying she can turn silver into gold, which gains the attention of the Stark King, whose kingdom requires gold to buy their survival. There are also 2 other women we are following throughout the story whose names I unfortunately don't remember, but one is the daughter of a wealthy family who is to marry the Tsar, and it seems that he is possessed by a fire demon, so she needs to fight against that and save herself as well as possibly the prince along the way. And we are also following a young woman who Miriam had hired because her father owed debts, and she and her brothers set out on their own to escape their father's abuse, and actually in hopes of finding Miriam, who had offered them the opportunity to escape their father in the first place. All 3 of these women have very different characteristics. They all handle their situations in very different ways, but they all prove themselves to be essential to the plot and to the success of the men around them. All of them are either seen as stepping stones for a man to get what he wants. They're either seen as worthless or irrelevant, but by the end of the story, boy, do they win some respect. The way that these men would get on their knees and grovel for forgiveness just for these women to stay with them by the end, let me tell you, these girls went and showed them how a woman can work and how she can go ahead and solve everybody's problems. So I had a lot of fun with this story. The writing is absolutely beautiful, magical. It is definitely fairy tale-esque, and I really do love all 3 of these women and the storyline that Naomi Novik provided them. Book number 7 out of 10, I believe, is A Curious Beginning by Diana Raybourn. And if you watched my unhaul, you were probably like, didn't you get rid of that book? Yes, but I haven't gotten around to unhauling the books I unhauled yet. We'll get to it eventually. But in this book, we are following Veronica Speedwell. And while I am unhauling these books, I am continuing with the series. I just decided I would move over to the audio books, and so no longer needed to collect these. I don't want you to think I'm not enjoying the series. I am having a great time with it. And Veronica Speedwell is a very independent woman. She is a woman of science. Specifically, she specializes in butterfly hunting. And one day after her aunt passes away, she's kind of preparing to live her life as a single independent woman with no family obligations. But a man shows up and lets her know that she is actually in danger and that she should come to London with him. She agrees to this because she needs to go to London anyway to catch her ship off to her adventures. However, when they get to London, he drops her off with Stoker, and about 24 hours later, they find out that this man is actually dead and that a lot of people are turning to Stoker to blame him. And so she and Stoker decide to set out to figure out who the real murderer is. This starts their friendship as well as their bad habit of falling into murder mysteries. Veronica is such a funny character. She makes me laugh. She's someone who I would say has somewhat of a dry sense of humor, which is something that I really enjoy. She really kind of presents her humorous statements with a blank face, a very serious face. And she has a very sharp tongue, and she and Stoker definitely know how to banter. She is very driven when it comes not just to her career in science, but also when it comes to solving mysteries. She is the one who is often pushing the investigations further and willing to take risks if it means solving the murder. She is also an excellent friend to Stoker. It is obviously a bit of a slow burn romance between them, as where I'm at right now. They are still just friends, but she is very protective of him. He is someone who has a very difficult past, and she will be there to stand up for him and to defend him against those who try to put them down, even if that person is Stoker himself. She is very determined to make him see the incredible man that he is. She is also a woman who is willing to let her desires be known despite the time period. She is not a virgin, and she is also very sex positive and does not agree with the station that women are forced to hold in this time in history. So this is a lot of fun, this story. Well, I'm not super duper in love with the mystery aspect of it, Veronica and Stoker very much have my heart, and I am looking forward to seeing what this bullheaded woman does with her life. Up next, we're gonna have Iron Widow by Sharon J. Chow, and this is a YA sci-fi story that is inspired by the ancient empress of China. And in this book, we are following Saitan, and she lives in a society that is battling aliens that are trying to overtake their land. And the way that they battle these aliens is to battle in these large structures known as chrysalids, and these are powered by a man and a woman and by their chi. However, the way that it is set up, the men are always more powerful than the women, and so they end up draining the women of their chi, and oftentimes the women end up dying. Our character's sister ends up dying even before she reaches the chrysalis, which makes it seem that her pilot killed her in cold blood, and our character is out for revenge. And she gets that when she gets paired up with this pilot and actually ends up overpowering him in the chrysalis, killing him instead, making her an Iron Widow. Instead of celebrating her strength and prowess on the battlefield, they end up pairing her with a more powerful male, a male known as a criminal who killed his family, in hopes that he will overpower her and kill her. This does not go as planned for them because they end up being a perfect match and end up dominating the battlefield together. This criminal and this woman who doesn't know her place are gonna take advantage of their importance on the battlefield to make changes to the way that this war is fought, for them to find a way that doesn't require the sacrifice of so many young women. Feminism is at the heart of this story. This character is incredibly angry, and she has the right to be angry for sure. She is disabled because she is the victim of foot binding, so there are many examples of the oppression of women in this story, and we can see just how many sacrifices and difficult decisions, if not outright harmful decisions, she makes in order to move forward her agenda. She is willing to make sacrifices of others and herself in order to make the world a better place for these young women. She is definitely the kind of character who comes across as unlikable, but is the kind of woman that you can't help but respect. This series is just excellently written. It is very fast paced. Our character is a woman on a mission, and she knows that the longer it takes her to accomplish her mission, the more innocent women will die. So if you haven't read this book yet, maybe that's a good thing, considering the second book got postponed till like the end of the year, if not 2025 again. Unfortunately, it was supposed to come out this April, and that is not happening. But all the same, I highly suggest checking out this book if you are looking for a strong female character. This book also has some polyamory within it, and watching her balance her relationship with these two men as well as with her political agendas was just an exciting experience. All right, second to last book. We are almost there, guys, and we have Ace of Spades by Farideh Becky Umedi, and this is one of my all-time favorite books. This is a YA thriller that has kind of Get Out meets a Gossip Girl vibes. In this book, we are following these two characters, and they are actually the only two Black kids at this prestigious high school that they are attending. And one day, both of them are offered the position of senior prefects, which our character Chiamaka was very much expecting. Devon, on the other hand, was not expecting this, but accepts it all the same because it would, of course, help him get into better universities. And while she does come from a wealthy Black family, he comes from the other side of the tracks. Shortly after they get this position, they start receiving text messages that are telling them things about themselves that people shouldn't know, that they don't want people to know, and things quickly start to escalate, and our two characters do what they can to figure out who is behind this. And Chiamaka is very much leading the cavalry when it comes to this. She is going to get to the bottom of this. She is not going to let this destroy her life. She has spent her entire life proving that she deserves to be where she is. She has not let her race get in the way whatsoever. She has fought tooth and nail to make it to the top of the class, and she is not going to let these racist white people stop her from getting into a good university and achieving her goal of being a doctor. I would say Devon is a little bit more resistant to all of this. He's very shy, he's very quiet, but at the same time, the boy's got survival instincts, and he knows that things have to be done in order for the two of them not to end up dead. And I was just on the edge of my seat throughout this entire story. It pissed me off so much. There was obviously blatant racism, there was more insidious racism, and no matter what these people were throwing at them, Chiamaka was taking it on head first, and she was gonna come out on top no matter what it takes. So I definitely think out of these two, Chiamaka was definitely the stronger character, and she isn't the kind of girl to be trifled with. My hand is starting to hurt from having to hold these books, but we are on the last book, and that is going to be Silver Under Nightfall by Rin Chupeco. And while the narrator of the story and the main character of the story is Remy, a vampire hunter, in this story he pairs up with a vampire couple, Song and Zayden, and they start to solve a mystery around a murder as well as some mutated vampires that are popping up. There is a polyamorous relationship between these three characters, and Song is very much the instigator of this. She is, I would say, the strongest link of this relationship because she is the one who is very much making her needs known. Xaden seems really to be the kind of person who's like, I'm not gonna admit my feelings or anything if he's not gonna admit his feelings, and Remy is straight up just in denial about things, while Song on the other hand is like, hey, we should all get together like right now. And on the other hand, Remy is, despite being one of the best vampire hunters in the kingdom, is very much ostracized because of the rumor that he himself is half vampire. And Song is more than happy to put anyone in their place, be it the queen herself, if they look down on Remy. She's like, listen here, here's all the things he's accomplished, here's all the things that he has done for you, here's all the ways that he's better than you, and you have shown him absolutely no respect. And that's not gonna fly anymore. And just every time she stood up for Remy, every time she put anyone in their place, anytime she was like, you are BSing me right now and I can see right through it. Do you think I'm an idiot? Absolutely not. Remy might let you push him around because he feels like he has no other choice, but I'm not gonna let that happen anymore. So I had so much respect for her for just putting all of these men, all of these powerful people in their place. She herself does have a chronic illness where she is suffering from a heart condition, but despite that, she is still a total badass on the battlefield. She is gonna be right there next to her partners, fighting till she drops dead, and she is fighting for something she really believes in. She wants an alliance between the humans and the vampires. She does not want there to be war. She doesn't want there to be a need for vampire hunters to kill her kind or for her kind to kill humans. And this is something she's really passionate about. She also has a mother who is facing some mental health issues that happened after the death of her husband, and just watching her as a daughter try to interact with her mother and to support her mother, as her mother is obviously mentally degrading, was really difficult. But you had a lot of respect for her and the strength that she showed in supporting her mother and loving her mother, despite the fact that her mother would often lash out to her. So I think this character had a lot going for her. She was one of the stronger parts of the story plot wise. I thought it was decent, but the characters were the strongest, and she was one of the ones that made me laugh the most and definitely intrigued me the most. So she is a very strong woman, and if you are looking for the kind of woman who will stand between two angry men and tell them to stop acting like children, then Song is the girl for you. All right, guys, so those are the 10 recommendations I have for strong female characters. As I said before, I would love to know your recommendations down below, and as always, thank you so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!